Hello, my name is Katie and welcome to my video. I'm here today to film something that I've been working on for quite a while and I am very excited about it. If you've been around for any length of time, you've probably heard me talk about my love for books that center on a house or an estate or some grand building. So I put together a list of great books with grand houses. I have 10. I have them ranked from not really least favorite to favorite, but least favorite, but also that I think least embodies the overall topic, if that makes sense. Hopefully once I get into talking about the books, if it will make more sense. I don't really think I have anything else to add, so I guess we'll just get right into it. The first book on this list is Empty Mansions, The Mysterious Life of Huguette Clark and the Spending of a Great American Fortune by Bill Dadman and Paul Clark Newell Jr. This is ranked 10 because I didn't like it quite as much as the other books on this list, and also because I think it doesn't quite embody the topic as well as most of the others on this list. Despite it being called Empty Mansions, there's actually very little discussion of the houses, mansions, estates in question. It's really more about kind of Huguette Clark, but also about how her father made his fortune. Most of it is in Gilded Age America. Her father made his money in copper mining and a whole bunch of other things. He was a very, not like a genius type of guy. He was just very good at manipulating circumstances to earn money for himself. So it has, discussions about various homes that she lived in. This huge mansion that was built in New York City by Huguette's father actually doesn't exist anymore because it was so massive that nobody could handle the property taxes and things of that nature. But it also discusses property that Huguette owned in Connecticut where she never even stayed. It discusses an estate in Southern California, and it discusses just other places that they lived. Sometimes they lived overseas in Europe, and then they had homes in Montana. So not exactly perfectly on topic, and definitely not my favorite, but there's a lot to discuss here, so if it sounds like an interesting book to you, it's worth a read. The next book on this list is a very, very different type of genre, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this at first, but then I thought this would be more fun for more people if I included a wide range of genres. So I have The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This, oh man, okay, Ruth Ware writes some excellent thrillers, for starters. This one takes place in this massive home in Scotland, I believe. Yes, it takes place in Scotland. They had this old, castle that this, I believe he's an architect, or maybe they build houses, I'm not sure. They're very wealthy, and they do something with houses, design or something like that. Anyway, so they took this massive mansion, this beautiful old Scottish castle, and they completely updated it. So from the front it still looks like a Highland castle, but the back they completely modernized, and it's like glass all the way around. It's absolutely stunning, the descriptions, and it's a completely smart house. Not quite in the way that the Disney movie Smart House is, a little bit more realistic than that, but there is an app that connects to everything in the house. There's cameras all over the place. The showers have these settings where you can customize the shower head to exactly your height and how hot you want the water, and if you step in, like, you tell it it's you, and it loads your preset options so you can have like the perfect shower experience. Absolutely nuts. It's a thriller, so I can't really say a whole lot about the plot because that would kind of ruin it. So essentially, the basics is there's this new nanny, and she comes to watch the kids who live in this house. And things get a little bit weird, and she's not sure if it's a haunted situation, if somebody is trying to get her to leave, or if the parents are screwing with her with all the smart house stuff. But it's very, very good. Pretty high up there on my list of Ruth Ware novels, I believe. The next book on my list is Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I do have a review for this one. I will link it in the cards, probably in the description box, so you can go watch that if you want to. A lot of people do not like this book, but I loved it for various reasons. As the title would suggest, there is a house centering the whole plot. Catherine House is actually an elite university set in rural Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of discussion about the house bringing everyone together. It kind of delves into a little bit of like a cult type of situation, but not bad. So if that kind of thing makes you uncomfortable, it's not super prominent, and it's not super creepy or unsettling, because that's the thing that really bothers me in books. So I think you'll be okay even if cults kind of creep you out, because it's not super prominent in the story. But yes, the house is very old. It's getting to the point where it's a little bit run down. They do have lots of descriptions about the house and the property, which is why it's on this list. But a little bit lower down, because it's just not as much of a focus as some of these others are. Next up on my list, I don't have the actual book. Well, kind of. It's The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. I have his complete works, which is very large. The Fall of the House of Usher is actually more of a short story, which is why I put it a little bit lower on the list. Because it's a short story, it's maybe not as developed as well as some of the other ones on this list are. I feel like most people have read The Fall of the House of Usher. It's something that I think in general you read in high school or college, but the house is this estate that's been passed down from generation to generation, and the way Poe writes it is its own character in the story. The house is as much a part of the family as the family is a part of the house. Excellent. If you haven't read it, oh my god, please go read it. It's not that long, and it's completely worth it. Next up on the list is another thriller. It's kind of more of a haunted house type of story, and that is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I'm not sure if this is my favorite Riley Sager novel. I'd have to put more thought into that, but I think this is quite a good one. This story centers on this family, and they buy this very large house, and the only reason they could even afford it was because it's rumored to be haunted. They get into the house, and literally like within a month or two, they are gone, and they never return to the house, and her father writes a story about the hauntings they experienced, and that's why they left. Years go by, he dies, and the daughter realizes that they still own the house. Now she's grown up, and she has become like a fixer-upper type of person. She buys these houses and she flips them. So she's like, okay, cool, I will flip the house and I will sell it and I will make some money. But then that starts bringing up a lot of questions about her past in connection with the house. And it's a really interesting setup here, because we're getting alternating chapters between our lead character, whose name I can't even remember, because I remember the house, but I don't remember the girl. Anyway, and then the book her father wrote. So we're getting, some of what she's going through with the house, and then we're getting part of what her father has claimed happened, 20 years earlier in when they were living there, in his book. Very good story. It was just the perfect amount of creepy. This is a very good Halloween type read, in my opinion. Number 5 on the list is The Last Palace, Europe's Turbulent Century and 5 Lives in One Legendary House by Norman Eisen. I've definitely talked about this book before because I love it. It is about this grand palace that was built by a man called Otto Peček in Prague. I believe it happened between World War I and World War II, somewhere around there. The building actually spanned years because this man could not make up his mind as to what he wanted. The problem here is that Otto Peček was Jewish. So when World War II rolled around, I think you can see obviously that they were not allowed to stay in the house. His family actually mostly ended up in America. He died before things really went to hell. So the author ends up living in this house because the house becomes the property of the United States. It's where the ambassador to Prague stays. And he goes there. He is of Jewish descent. His mother once lived in Prague. It's really just, it's like life coming full circle here. You have parts of his mother's life and her experiences during World War II in Prague, and then you have kind of what the author gets to experience while he's living in this house. And then you also get to learn about other people who inhabited the house. There were some prominent members of the Nazi Party who lived there, prior ambassadors to Prague who lived there. Just a very, very cool story, very, very interesting. Well, I guess you could kind of call it like a memoir, but it's really a memoir of the palace itself, which is infinitely more interesting in my opinion. Next up on this list is a book I have on Kindle, and that is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I read it back in October, I believe, and oh my goodness, it was so good. The only reason this is not ranked like number one on the list is that it is honestly more about the woman of the house rather than the estate itself. So if you don't know, which I feel like a lot of people have either read Rebecca or watched an adaptation, it essentially centers on this estate called Manderley. And the man who owns the estate brings home a new wife. His previous wife has died. Her name was Rebecca, and she's just almost still a living presence inside this house. Very creepy. You feel uneasy through a lot of it, which is exactly what the main character, whose name we never do get, is feeling through a lot of this. She's feeling uneasy, out of her element, and like she just doesn't quite measure up. The estate is described in great detail, and it's kind of a hinge point of the whole thing, honestly, and it was just such an excellent read. Highly recommend it if you have not seen it. And I really recommend that you read the book before you watch any of the adaptations, because the book is just so good. Book number 3 on the list is another nonfiction. I think I read this in October maybe? It hasn't been that long since I read it. And that is The Last Castle, an epic story of love, loss, and American royalty in the nation's largest home. This is by Denise Kieran. She is an excellent author. This is just a masterpiece, in my opinion. She really managed to take the estate of Biltmore, which was built by George Vanderbilt, and despite her introducing a number of characters and taking little side journeys about their stories throughout the entire thing, because she centers it all on Biltmore and how they connect to the house, it's really easy to keep track and maintain, you know, just like what's going on, who these people are, and how they are all connected. Excellent work. The house is stunning. I've seen several pictures now, not just the ones included in the book, and oh my word, whew. I need to go there. If COVID ever decides to go away, I will be traveling to North Carolina because I need to see this home. My only kind of gripe, I think, with this book is that it was a little bit longer than I think it needed to be, but otherwise, absolutely excellent. If you enjoy Gilded Age America, if you enjoy reading about large homes, definitely give this one a go. Book 2 on this list, we are almost done, is The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. This was a fairly recent read as well. It is very similar in tone and feeling to The Fall of the House of Usher, in that the house is as much a part of the family as the family is a part of it. The home is called Hundreds Hall, and we begin with a very young Dr. Faraday, who is our main character. He's, I don't know, a child, 7, 8, 9, something around there, and he visits Hundreds Hall for the first time, and it immediately settles into his soul, and he is in awe of it and the family who lives there. And then we're like 20, 30 years later, quite a long time has passed, and he gets called to Hundreds Hall to treat a sick servant. This is post-World War II. The son, who still lives in the home with his elderly mother and his sister, has been injured in World War II. And Dr. Faraday, it's hard to know if it's in an attempt to keep his connection with the house or if it's out of a genuine desire to help, suggests a treatment for him that would also kind of help him, because it would be a research project for him, because the son is very hesitant to accept help for free. He's very proud, and he doesn't want to admit that the estate is failing. But Dr. Faraday really just ingratiates himself with the family and keeps getting himself invited back, and really just becomes a great friend to the family, and he starts to feel a little bit proprietary over the home, and there's some supernatural type things that begin to occur, but you never are quite certain if it's supernatural or if somebody's doing it. It's very hard to decide what exactly is going on until you get to the end, and by the end you have a fairly good idea of what you suspect was actually happening. Excellent book. It kept me so tense, and I just needed to continue with it. I was actually almost sad when it ended, though, because there was just, Sarah Waters can craft a world and atmosphere like no other author I've ever read before. Highly, highly recommend this book. So, book number 1 on this list, and I'm sure that at least one of you has been able to guess it if you've been hanging around, if you know not just me and my taste, but also have an idea of books that have come out in the last year or so that center on a home. That is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Oh wow, I read this over the summer, I think. And I know this isn't everybody's favorite, and that's okay. I can see its faults, for sure. But when it comes to a story that is built around a home that is essentially a person, this home is just as much a character in this book as anybody. I would argue that it's a stronger character in this book than several of the characters. Such a good story. Our main character, Noemi, gets a letter from her cousin, who has married rather quickly into this family and been taken to live in this man's family home. She writes a letter because she's afraid that something is wrong. She doesn't know what's going on, but she doesn't feel safe. She's been sick, etc. So Noemi goes to visit to see what's going on and if she can help. Oh, this whole book feels like a fever dream. Like, I don't know how to describe it any other way than that. There is some really kind of stomach-turning things that happen in this. So if you have a weak stomach, probably don't read this. And then there's some interesting discussions, and I can't even tell you what it surrounds, because that would honestly give away like the crux of the story. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Excellent book. If Gothic is not your jam though, and then just don't read it. You have to really like that Gothic style in order to get down with this book, because that is what it's called, Mexican Gothic. I mean, that should tell you right there that if that's not something that you read, you're not gonna like it. But if you are into Gothic, or if you want to see if that is for you, this is a good one to pick up, I think. So that is my ranked list of great books with grand houses. I know there are more out there. These are just the ones that I've read and could remember at this point. So if you have any recommendations for me, let me know in the comments below. I would love to pick up some more. If any of these sound interesting to you, I would love to know which ones. If you're new here and you like my content, subscribe. Stick around. I'd love to see you in my comments. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.